purchased a historic home in McGrath.
Today, you're going to discover the easiest way to trade options without.
That's what happens when you hit the wrong button on your phone. Hold on, everybody. How dare I? How dare I hit the wrong button? Let me go back. Let me go back. Oh, Paul, we don't want to lose your theme song. Hold on, everybody. Whoa, Nelly. Look at that. Mistakes made. But we recover, don't we? That's the joy of us here in the world of OCD. All right, here we go. I don't know about you guys. I feel like I'm about 5 minutes behind myself today. So anyway, hello and welcome once again, everyone, to our wonderful weekly Wednesday night webinar brought to you by NoCD. NoCD, a downloadable app. You can get through Google Play or iOS. Check us out. Free download. Available to do teletherapy across the US of A and Canada and Australia and Great Britain as well. Hello, United Kingdom friends. So welcome. And yes, good to have all of you here. And let's just see what we got coming in. So we'll start off with Mickey says, my OCD is all death thoughts. Help. Well, OCD does love to pick on things that are frightening and scary. So if the concept of dying is for yourself or somebody else that you maybe know or love is frightening or scaring, that's what OCD is definitely going to be picking on for sure, Mickey. So just kind of keep that in mind, that OCD loves to take a look at what would be the worst thing ever in the world for you. Oh, you dying or somebody else dying? Well, let's get you to think about that a heck of a lot and see what happens when you think about dying so very much. So, Mickey, remember this. Just because OCD wants you to focus on something doesn't mean that you must, right? And Mickey, there's a difference between distracting and living your life, right? Distracting would be, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to make sure that I don't think about death. Living your life is, I thought about death, but I'm still going to go to the store anyway, right? And that's a real fundamental, thing that I want everyone to really pay attention to, because that's what we want for people to do. We want people to really do the things that they need to do to live their life and not let these intrusive thoughts really get in the way and stop them from doing the things that they feel like they need to do. Charles says, my latest obsession is that I'm deceived by psychology. Oh, yes, those evil psychology. And that my lack of doing a compulsion will damn me. What is the evidence OCD is real? But deep down, I know OCD is real and psychology can help. OCD is real as a diagnosis, I would say, is where we really want to go. I mean, that I would go with. But OCD, the things that OCD tells you, I don't really see being real, or else, as Carl, who is on here now and then once said, he once said during the middle of one of these webinars, this is either the largest collection of murderers, deceivers, horrible, awful people, child molesters, and contaminated people in the world, or all of us have OCD, one or the other. So Charles, I'm not going to go down the road of trying to convince you about something to believe it to be true or not, because I can't, because I know that OCD being the doubting disorder, there's no answer that I'm ever going to give you that you're going to accept as 100%, and that your OCD will say, okay, well, now that you've said that, that makes a lot of sense. I 100% agree with that. Thank you very much. All is well. That's not where we're going to go, Charles. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to recognize that OCD likes to play tricks on you. Through psychology, we've worked on exposure and response prevention therapy. It has helped a lot of people, and it can help yourself, I believe, too, if you were to apply it. But it's not going to be very helpful if first you have to be convinced that OCD is real to the level that your OCD believes that it's real. Which, why wouldn't OCD believe that it's real? Because it's an OCD trick. That's why. Because OCD will try to convince you that OCD isn't real and that you really are this thing or this awful, horrible person or whatever it is that your OCD themes might potentially be. But when OCD gets in the way of OCD treatment, it can be really difficult. And I think that it takes a really good, skilled therapist to be able to recognize when that's happening so that people aren't thrown off of therapy by it. OCD will say, okay, you want to get rid of me? All right, fine. I accept that. That's fine. However, to get rid of me, you're going to have to do really perfect therapy in order to get rid of me, which is where then you'll never be able to do that. And you can't do that because you have OCD, because it'll never be perfect. So OCD can definitely get in the way of treating OCD. For those of you who haven't thought about that, think about that for a little bit, right? It's an interesting concept, isn't it? That OCD gets in the way of treating OCD. But it absolutely does. And we therapists see stuff like that happen all of the time. Christina says, gotta love OCD. I'm attempting to see sarcasm there. I'm thinking, Christina, I'm thinking you are, but I'm going to go with it. Right now, my intrusive thoughts are telling me I'm going to blurt out inappropriate things while talking to people at work. For example, while talking to my supervisor, I thought I'm going to blurt out, I love you. Like what? Yes. Well, OCD does love to say that you're going to do things, or what if you were to do something or that nature, or you want to do it, because remember, OCD can be urges to do things as well too. And then we feel, as we've talked about here a lot before, we feel like it must be true. It must be real. Why would it be happening if I didn't really want to do it? And I'm just one step away from it. And then we have thought action fusion. A thought is just as bad as an action. And if I think something, it's as bad as doing something. And on and on and on and on. And what do we want everyone to recognize? Just because we think something doesn't make it true doesn't mean that it's real or anything of that nature, right? We don't need to kind of give into, well, OCD said it, so I mean, come on. I mean, it's gotta be. I mean, why would OCD have said it if it wasn't? I mean, of course, right? That'd be like saying, well, everything your mom told you was the truth, 100%. Or everything that your neighbor kid told you was 100% true, or something like that. What's your dad do? My dad's a superhero. Oh, well, the neighbor kid said my dad's a superhero, so his dad must be a superhero. I mean, he said it. It's got to be true, right? And that's the thing. Again, we've kind of fall for what the OCD is telling us. OCD is connected into that emotion center of our brain, and so it feels real because it's really generating a lot of those emotional experiences for us, and we're able, come on, let's all recognize we're all smart here, doing all of this stuff that we're on together. There's 88 of you, and so me, there's 89 smart people here, hopefully, that we're talking about. We know logically none of this makes sense, but it feels, oh my gosh, it feels so real. And why would it feel this real if it wasn't real? Because it's connected to the emotion center of your brain. That's why, right? Just like a horror movie feels so real, and it's why you jump when, even though you're in a movie theater and you're laying back in a recliner and you've got 3D glasses on and you've got a bigger thing of popcorn in your lap than you would ever eat in your entire life, and there's a drink that's this big next to you and everything like that, and you got a blanket over you and you're laying next to your sweetheart, and suddenly someone pops out from behind a tree with a knife and goes, wow, and you go, ah, right, and everything like that. It sure seemed or felt real at that very moment, even though it wasn't. Well, if a movie can do that, OCD can do that. OCD is kind of like a movie in your head in some ways, if you want to think about it. Now, of course, the more you see a movie and the more you realize that it's predictable and that nothing bad happens to you, you are able to say, oh, well, that's the movie. That's what happens in the movie. But the difference in OCD and the thing that's going on in your brain is you're always going to have the what if experience in your head, which is going, but what if? But what if the next time is the time that it actually happens? But the movie's never going to change. The movie's the movie, right? Yeah. Unless they do a re-edit, the movie is always the movie. But you never have that certainty in your head about OCD because your OCD is going to throw in there. But what if the next time is the time? Right? And that's why it seems so overwhelming to people. They get what ifed all the time. And boy, when you get what ifed, it's so easy just to believe that those what ifs are absolutely true. And you get really stuck in that what if kind of thinking. And you almost start to believe that your what ifs are realities or so close to reality, because remember, in OCD, possibility equals probability. So now if you've what if something and you've thought about it, it seems to you like it might be possible, and if it's possible, it's probable in OCD. So therefore, possibility equaling probability means, well, my what if now is definitely going to happen, and now I have to be worried about that and pay attention to it, and I have to live my life as if it's going to happen. So, Christina, there's a part of you that's in your head's going, oh, you're definitely going to tell your supervisor that you love them, right? Even though logically you might be saying, that's never going to happen. I don't even like my supervisor. But what if I do? So hope that helps, Christina and everybody else, and makes some sense to everyone. Why, Evelyn says, why does my intrusive thought say, I wish something bad would happen to someone I love? It scares me. Well, Evelyn, because that's what intrusive thoughts do. It's also why I have a card in my wallet that says, I hope my parents die tonight, please God. And there's a 666 on it because I was working with someone, Evelyn, who had a very similar kind of experience. And when they did, they would have to say a prayer. Otherwise, they felt their wish would come true and their parents would die. So I said, all right, well, I'm going to write this down on a card and I'm going to carry it around in my wallet. Now, that was 17 years ago. That card is still in my wallet to this day. And my parents are still alive. And they do know that the card is there as well, too. So, Evelyn, my question back to you is, why wouldn't your OCD intrusive thoughts say you wish something bad would happen to someone you love, right? Because that's exactly the way that OCD intrusive thoughts work, is to do those very types of things. They are the opposite of what you would ever hope for. That's why OCD is referred to as ego dystonic, right? Meaning basically big phrase for, I don't like it, is what it really stands for, right? I don't like this. I don't like that. Versus something that would be Sorry about that. Microphone muted for a second. So as we said, ego dystonic basically means this: I don't like it. Ego syntonic means, yeah, I like it. No one with OCD is telling me they really like their thoughts. They will say, what if I like my thoughts? Or I'm afraid I might like my thoughts, or qualifiers upon qualifiers, or something of that nature. But they're not coming in saying that they do like their thoughts. Hope that helps. Allie. Hi, Dr. McGrath. Thanks a lot for your great webinars. No problem. In conversations, I always think that my voice is recorded. This has caused me not to have friends or be fake in conversations. What should I do? Purposely go have some great conversations with people, Allie, and go out there and say the things that you're thinking and that you're wanting to say, and purposely just live it up with folks and allow yourself to see what happens. Now, here's a funny thing, Allie. My voice is recorded every week, a Wednesday night at this time, right? And so you can even function having your voice being recorded, right? It is a possibility, because here I am. As is any movie star that you've ever seen, or any radio hosts or anything like that. Their shows are all recorded. They're on tape somewhere and everything like that. So people can function even being recorded, as you can see here, right? So Allie, you're going to do the opposite, right? You're going to go out and you're going to live your life that even if you were recorded, who cares? You're going to go out and do the things that you want to do, and you're not going to let that obsession get in the way of you living your life and doing the things that you would like to do. That's what I want you to do, Allie. That's how I want you to go out and be. Let's see here. Mohammed says, How is the first 3 meetings look like with an OCD therapist? So Hamid, our first couple of sessions really take a look at developing good rapport with you, right? We want to make sure that we've got a great relationship. That's number one. Always making sure that we're going to assess a really, really wonderful relationship with you. Then we're going to kind of go over the basics that we need. We need a good history on people and kind of know their treatment history, diagnosis history, medication history, all those kinds of things. Family histories are important here because you really want a well-rounded view of who it is that you're working with and to understand that. And then we're going to go through diagnoses and we're going to make sure that we get a good diagnostic picture of somebody and really understand all of the various complexities that might be showing up in somebody's case. And with that, we will then go on to develop some great treatment planning and education for someone. And then we're going to get into ERP. So that's kind of our progression that we would do. Build some great rapport, really get to know the person and their history, get a diagnosis for them, and then educate, and then get them treatment. That's what we're going to do and how we're going to help people. So hope that helps. Hassan says, what do you recommend to patients who have difficulty believing their inner monologue? Well, that's where obsessions really come in, right? Obsessions in many ways by people can be seen as an inner monologue and a fear of what if that were true. So now you say have difficulty believing their inner monologue. I wonder if you meant difficulty not believing their inner monologue if their inner monologue is OCD, or difficulty believing their inner monologue if it's against what OCD wants, because the OCD voices can become very, very strong, of course. But so here's what I want people to recognize. There are tons of thoughts that are running through our heads all of the time, throughout all of the day for everybody. And just because they are doesn't make them true or doesn't make them real. So I want everyone to recognize that you can have all sorts of things popping through your head, but it does not make them true and it does not make them real, right? And so I don't believe everything that flows through my own head at all, actually. And I know that some of the things that pop into my head are weird. Some of them are actually very influenced by obsessive compulsive disorder because I've treated it for so long that now, say when I pass the cemetery, I have intrusive thoughts because I've treated a lot of people who have issues with cemeteries. Either they're afraid of death germs, or what if they were to dig someone up from their grave, or things like that. So whenever I pass the cemetery, those thoughts pop into my head. And if I'm in a bathroom, I think of all the contamination thoughts and fears that people I've treated for have had. And there's a mall, I think about, the kids that are at the mall, and I've treated so many people with pedophilic OCD. So now I think about what's going on and where all the children are at the mall, what are they doing, and all these kinds of things. And I let it go, right? Because I recognize that, sure, I'm influenced by those things. Those things are running through my head, but I don't have to believe them. I don't have to trust them, and I don't have to go with it, right? I can recognize that it's a relic of my treatment of obsessive compulsive disorder as to why those things are absolutely happening. Zach asks, are there any clinics around the U.S. that do weekend intensives for OCD? Zach, I don't know, but I would check with the International OCD Foundation. And there's a link on there for Find a Therapist, and you can look up clinics, and you'd be able to see if there's anybody doing that. So that might be your best bet to check that out. Anonymous 23 says, I feel guilty for what I think and believe. It impacts my behaviors, such as avoidance and making my thoughts and actions around certain subjects worse. How can I reduce anxiety about what I fear will happen? Anonymous, you go out and you do the very things that you are avoiding, and you allow yourself to learn that what you're afraid will happen is not because you are or not avoiding something. Those things don't occur because not of avoidance. Those things will occur whether or not, in many ways, you avoid things. So if I've convinced myself that doing this keeps the ceiling from falling on me, I have no evidence that that's the case, but it sure feels good when I do it, right? So every day I do this, and it's just knowing that I'm pushing the air up against the ceiling, and that's going to keep the ceiling from falling on me. And if every day I do that and then the ceiling doesn't fall on me, I've taught myself that, well, the only reason the ceiling's never fallen on me is because I've done that thing. Now, in anonymous, what if somebody goes to an amusement park and they're with their friends, and at the end of the day they say, well, I'm alive because I didn't ride any roller coasters today, and they all say, well, we rode roller coasters all day long and we didn't die. Why would you have died? They say, well, when I do things, that's when bad things happen. I'm special. The rules will apply to me differently than they do to everybody else. So it's fine for all of you to do it, but it's not okay if I did it. And there's a person right there who really kind of does hold on to the notion that avoidance is actually a good thing, right? And what do we know over time, though? Avoidance actually makes things worse instead of better, even though in the moment it feels like it makes it better. So now you have to make a decision. What do you want to do? Do you want to feel good in the short term, or do you want to feel good in the long term? Are you going to do something that feels good now, or are you going to do something that feels good later? I'd like you to do something that's actually going to be better for you later, and not be so focused on doing something that's going to feel good right now. But so many people are so focused on what's going to do the best for me right now in the moment, instead of what's going to be the thing that's best for me in the later on time. And so, Anonymous, if we could move that to how can you focus on what's going to be better for you later, that would be great. If any of you had a relative that was in a drug detox unit and they were, really suffering through detox, and you went to visit them and they said, could you sneak some vodka in here? Would you do it? Or would you say, yeah, I'm really sorry, you're going to have to suffer through this detox and then start therapy. But once you get through the detox and the really difficult part, then you're going to learn how to live without alcohol. That's the way to help people who are suffering with alcoholism, right? Is to do that. Not to say, oh, yeah, let me run to the liquor store and grab you some alcohol so you can stop going through the withdrawal, because that'll be the best thing that happens. Allie says, anything that happens throughout the day, even tiny, I relate it negatively to my destiny, which is you fear becoming homeless and dying because of hunger. Maybe over 100 times this picture comes into your mind every day. So, Allie, then what I would do is I would make a loop tape of something like that. And if you're working with an OCD therapist, they can help set that up and everything like that on the app. But I would definitely make a loop tape of that. And I would just have you listen to that over and over again. Eventually, I'm probably just going to be homeless and die of hunger. Eventually, I'm probably just going to become homeless, die of hunger. And I want you to do that until you're really bored with it, right? And you, instead of every time that it pops into your head now, you probably do things like some kind of compulsions. No, I have a good job and this is what I'm going to do. And these are the things that I do in order to make sure that I have money, and I'm going to save this and I'm going to do this and all that kind of stuff. Nope. I just want you to be like, all right, well, you know what? There's a chance that I could die homeless and of hunger. It is a possibility. And you know what, Allie? There's a chance I could die homeless and of hunger as well, too. It is a possibility, right? I'm not going to say it's not going to happen. I can't make a guarantee that it won't happen. So, Allie, I'm going to firmly state right now, I have a chance of dying homeless and hungry. It is a possibility. And I'm not going to do a ritual to undo it whatsoever. I'm going to sit with that and I'm going to learn that I can handle it, because I know that it is possible. And I'm okay with the fact that it is possible, because I can't live in a world where it isn't possible, because it is possible, right? So this isn't a world where I can say that's definitely never, ever, 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 ever going to happen. I have no ability to guarantee that whatsoever. So I'm going to live with the uncertainty, and I'm going to allow myself to be okay with being uncertain about something for the future. Welcome again, everyone, to the NoCD Wednesday night webinar. I am Patrick McGrath, Chief Clinical Officer here at NoCD. As a reminder, the things that we talk about here tonight are not therapy advice. If you are needing therapy, please check out NoCD. NoCD, a downloadable app you can get through Google Play or iOS. We do teletherapy across the United States, Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom. So check us out. We would love to talk to you. You can hit the therapy button on the app if you download it, and it'll get you connected to our care team. We'll do a free phone call with you to kind of assess what's going on, check out your insurance, all those different things, and see if we can get you connected with one of our NoCD ERP therapists. Sam asks, any tips on how to stop ruminating, confessing to a partner? All are minor that happened several years ago. Seems like every time I move on, I feel like there's a detail I need to confess. So Sam, let's say that you and I were in a relationship, and I cheated on you 5 years ago, and now 5 years later, every day I'm still talking to you about it, and just bringing up one more thing. How do you think you would feel, Sam, if that were the case? If we were in a relationship together and that were the case? I'm sure you wouldn't like it, right, Sam? And I'm sure you also know your partner is not a fan of it either. So here's the deal, Sam. You're not doing that to tell your partner something so that she's 100% aware. Oh, that's what your OCD is telling you. Your OCD is saying, you really, oh, wait, you thought of something else. Now's the test. Now let's see what they think about this. And will this be the thing that will leave them? You're doing this to really reassure yourself that they aren't going to leave you, because you want them to know absolutely 100% everything, so that you can constantly assess where they're at with it. And if they change their mind and then they're going to leave, that you'll be prepared for that. But you're basically living, Sam, under the notion that they're out of here, right? That they're going to go, because one day you're going to come up with something that's going to probably flip them over the edge. And yet you're still testing them to see if that's going to be the case, because you believe, your OCD tells you, at least deep down in there is probably something that is going to make it go away. And they might find out one day. And so you should probably make sure that you let them know absolutely everything, because you don't want them living under a false pretense, and you don't want to be in the relationship under some kind of false pretense as well too. So this confessing, Sam, has to stop. I'm going to assume your partner has no interest in it whatsoever. And if they've moved on, it's time for you to practice moving on as well too. And the confessing isn't for anything about your relationship. The confessing is just really satisfying to your OCD, because your OCD wants you to keep doing it, because your OCD loves hearing, no, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. Until the point where you may get, and I'm not saying your partner's going to do this, I have no idea, but I have seen partners who say, listen, one more confession and I'm out of here, right? I don't want to talk about this again. I don't want to hear about this again. I have forgiven you. We're good. Don't bring it up anymore. And then people still bring it up because they're like, but what if, right? And remember, that is being done not to the satisfaction of your partner, not to the satisfaction of your relationship. That is only being done to satisfy your OCD. So Sam, you've got to decide, who do you really want to have a relationship with, your partner or with your obsessive compulsive disorder? Because every confession you're doing is strengthening the relationship with the obsessive compulsive disorder and not with your partner. Okay? So hope that happens. Anonymous says, are you taking on clients? If so, how do we go about receiving services from you? Personally, no, I am quite full at the moment with my OCD job and the patients, the members that I see already. However, we've got great therapists here at OCD that have gone through a training program that I helped develop. So be happy if anybody is interested in reaching out, we can get you set up with somebody really good. So, Callie says, why is it that my harm OCD gets triggered when I'm upset, angry, and makes me think that I'm going to act out on my thoughts, because it reasons with me that people have done bad things because of this? Well, Callie, it makes a total 100% sense that your OCD would say, oh, now that you're angry, you have less control over your emotions, because anger is there, and you should stay calm all the time, because only by being calm are you going to guarantee that nothing bad's going to happen to everybody. But if you're angry, now you're even closer to the potential of harming someone. So therefore, OCD is going to be like, oh, wait a minute, warning, anger detected. Oh, bad. Now's the chance. Now's the opportunity. Let's make sure that we're doing compulsions now to prevent that bad thing from happening, blah, blah, blah. Right. Now, Elliot says there, your OCD thoughts, because it reasons with me that people have done bad things because of this. Now, Kelly, I haven't seen people doing bad things because of OCD, unless you call bad things being like constantly seeking reassurance from somebody who doesn't want reassurance. That maybe, if you want to call that bad, some people might label it that way. But it's not like someone with OCD says, oh, I finally thought about pushing enough people into a train. Okay, today's the day. And then they just start going to do it. I may have said on here before, but I will say it now. If I had the opportunity to have two people behind me, one who had OCD and fear of harm, and one who had no OCD whatsoever, I would ask the person with OCD, fear of harm, to be the one to consider pushing me into the train versus the person who didn't have OCD, because I very much trust the fact that the person with OCD is not going to harm me more than a person who doesn't have OCD. So, and I've done that actual exposure where I've taken somebody who has a fear of what if I were to push someone into a train, and for 3 hours stood at the train track with my arms behind me and with their hands on my shoulders telling them to push me into every train that came by. So, I want you to recognize, Kelly, that again, this is another trick that OCD loves to play on people, and that is this: ooh, any kind of emotion other than happy or neutral is really bad, because it can lead you to doing some kind of OCD thing. And what if it kind of pushes you over the edge if that's the case? And Kelly, don't get caught up in that, because that's just an OCD needling at you, but you don't have to believe it as being true. Elizabeth says, when trying to stop mental rituals, is it common to get caught in trying too hard to control your thinking? Yeah, stopping mental rituals is not about controlling your thinking. Stopping mental rituals might even be undoing them after you do them. So let's say that you have a fear. We'll go back to some of the things we talked about earlier of somebody being harmed. And so then you say, no, I love them. And that's your mental ritual that you do, is you say, no, I love them. I would like you then to follow that with, or not, right? I'm not out to control your thinking, Elizabeth, at all. I want you to undo the mental rituals that you do and sit in the discomfort of having undone them, and sitting with not having that assurance that you feel, even if it's so very, very briefly whenever you do a compulsion, but not having that assurance that you feel when you do the compulsion that everything's going to be fine and okay. Okay, that's what I really want you to work on, is sitting without having that feeling of things being fine and things being okay. Muhammad says, can saying this is OCD thought when you get a thought turn into a compulsion? Yeah, absolutely. So that's why sometimes I have people start that, but I don't want to do that too long. I've done that with people just to help them recognize when it's OCD, but I don't want that to be the final end all. I just want people to be like, oh, okay, well, there's a thought, whatever, and then move on. So you got to watch that could become a compulsion for some people. Absolutely. Ethan says OCD is effed, LMAO. I like that. Joanna says, I have relationship OCD and the feeling constantly keeps changing. And it can do that, right? It can be kind of like a OCD whack-a-mole, right? Where it just feels like it's a constant moving target. And once you work on them, well, then what if this, what if this? And so sometimes I just have to say to people, this is the thing that we're going to work on, this feeling that you have. And you might even say, well, today it's not really bothering me. That's okay. We're still going to really work on it, because we know that it is going to come back, because it's going to whack-a-mole back to this experience. Angel says, can contamination OCD ever be cured? My assigned therapist seemed worried ERP won't help with my current height of anxiety, as my son has been sick lately with a stomach virus. Angel, I've never said I've cured anyone. I don't talk about curing people. Other people may have a different opinion on this, but I'm not about getting out the concept of a cure. What I say to people is you can really learn how to live with OCD and not be bothered by OCD, even though it's there, right? If you want to call that a cure, where it's just not really bugging you anymore, then great. Then that might be a cure to somebody. But in terms of I'll never have an intrusive thought or an urge to do a compulsion, I don't see that happening. And I say that because people without OCD do have intrusive thoughts. And people without OCD might even have quirky things that look like compulsions. I mean, there's people without OCD that if they, breathe on this arm, then they go on that one just to feel symmetry, right? It might take at most 2 or 3 minutes of their day. So it's not going to be something that's interfering in their life, and it's not going to be something that bothers them. It's a quirky thing that they do. But if you grow it, it looks a lot like what you see people with obsessive compulsive disorder doing, right? So I don't know that, again, I would ever say I've cured anyone, but I've definitely got people to a point where they're able to say, oh yeah, okay, not really bothering me. There's that OCD, whatever. It's just, yeah, I know it's there, but it's really, really not a big deal. And they've been able to move on. Fernanda says, What advice or free resources would you give someone who doesn't have the financial stability to pay for an expert or OCD specialist? There are groups that are advertised on the International OCD Foundation website. Some of them, I believe, are even free, so you may check some of those out and see if that's the case and utilize those help experiences. There's also some great books out there on OCD that you might also find are helpful. And the International OCD website has a lot of links to things and articles and even videos as well too. Hopefully watching these webinars, so they're recorded every week and on YouTube, can be amazingly helpful. Follow the NoCD Instagram page, Facebook page, and all of those things. And I think that we give out some really helpful tips as well too that could be really useful to you. Ethan asks, are affirmations good for OCD, or is it a compulsion? Yep, same kind of thing, Ethan, with that too. You just got to watch anything that you're doing. You just have to be careful that, are you doing it because you want to do it, or are you doing it because it helps to neutralize an obsession? If it's done to neutralize an obsession, it's OCD. If you're doing it because you like to do it, you want to do it, then great. And it's not interfering with your life or causing any problems, that's awesome. Living free. Any advice for people with POCD, pedophilic OCD, and being flooded when you become a parent? There is no going slow. It all happens so fast, and you can't avoid your child. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Living Free. I did, and there was an article about this, so I can talk about it. I did work with a woman who didn't touch her child for the first 6 months of her child's life, never once laid a finger on her child whatsoever, out of fear that she could harm or molest her child. And so we did a great deal of work first on anatomically correct dolls to help her learn how to change diapers and wipe and all those things. And she was just really, really afraid. What if I'm wiping and I touch my son's genitals and he almost enjoys it? Or what if I get a groinal kind of response feeling out of the whole thing? And that, does that mean that I enjoyed it and that I liked touching my little boy's genitals or something like that? And so it was a very purposeful ERP work around the anatomically correct dolls for her to practice changing on there. And then eventually she did bring her child into sessions, and then her and her husband did change the child together. And then we had her do it alone a few times, and then she actually picked her child up, and I got to witness her holding her child at age 6 months for the very first time ever. It was the first time she'd ever held her child, and it was just such a really beautiful experience to watch how ERP can be a really helpful thing for people. So Living free, I hear you, I feel you, absolutely. Becoming a parent can be a big flood of this kind of thing. Whether you're a male or a female or adoptive parent or even not binary, it doesn't matter what you are, right? It doesn't matter your identity, it doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter anything, right? Because OCD doesn't care about those things. OCD can throw these thoughts into your head, or these images, or even these urges into your head as well too. So just keep that in mind, that because sometimes when we talk about perinatal or postpartum OCD, everyone just assumes it's the mom, but sometimes it's the other mom or the dad or the adoptive parents, and having a baby is a stressor. And though it's seen by many people as a wonderful thing, it's a stressor, right? And stressors are things that OCD loves to grab onto and say, "Oh, hey, there's something we can use. Shiny object over there. Let's go grab that," and cause doubt about that very thing over there right now as well. Jen M, how are you? I've been working through exposures and not doing compulsions and slowly improving, but I'm so very hard on myself. What's something important to try to do daily, even if I'm having a more challenging day? Jen M, I always say to people, specialness is something important to assess. Specialness is the rules of the world apply to me differently than they do to everybody else. It's fine if other people do it, but if I do it, it's bad, it's awful, it's horrible. So I've given people an assignment, and so you might try this, Jenna. What I want you to do for the next 24 hours is to treat yourself as if you were your very best friend in the entire world. And Gen M, this is not just for you. This is for everybody watching. So everybody who's watching this, I want you to pay attention here for a minute. Just really focus on this. For the next 24 hours, I want each of you to treat yourself as if you actually liked yourself. I want you to treat yourself as if you were your very best friend in the entire world. And I want you to see what that experience is like. Anytime anything goes well, I want you to say to yourself, hey, nice job. That was awesome. Good work, self. Little pat on the back there. Anytime anything goes wrong, I want you to say to yourself, who cares? No big deal, whatever. I can handle it. It's no biggie. No biggie with it. That's what you would say to the people you love. I want you to do that for the next 24 hours to yourself. Now, starting at 7:42 Central Time tomorrow, I want you to switch. And starting at 7:42 Central Time tomorrow, I want you to treat everybody you know like you normally treat yourself. So anytime anybody you know does anything wrong, go up to them and say, well, that was stupid. I can't believe you did that. You're a moron. You should probably die. And anytime they do anything well, go up and say, well, it was luck. It's not like you actually deserved it or anything. And now that something good happened, something bad's bound to happen. And then see if anybody will ever be friends with you ever again for the rest of your life. So don't actually do that tomorrow, but hopefully you get the point. We are really, really wonderful at motivating other people by telling them how great they are, what a great job they did. And even if we did the exact same thing that they did, we would say to ourselves, that really sucked. Yeah, I could have done better. That was kind of stupid. All right. It is okay to be nice to yourself, everyone. That is all right. Now, OCD is not a fan of this. Okay. And since there's a lot of people who have depression along with OCD, depression also not a big fan of this, right? I mean, if you like yourself, then maybe you have more self-confidence. Well, OCD is not about self-confidence. OCD is about self-doubt, right? So OCD is not having the, hey, wait, whoa, what? You thought that was good? No. Could have been better. A lot better. Yeah. Can't believe you even thought that might be okay. Wow. I mean, I've never seen anyone with OCD come up to me in a session and say, hey, my OCD gave me a compliment this week. It's never happened. Never happened. OCD does not hand out compliments. OCD hands out critiques and criticisms and all sorts of other things. But I just don't see OCD handing out compliments. Now, Gen M, and for the rest of you, the notion that you have to be hard on yourself in order to get better is an OCD influenced notion. We are great at saying, if you just work hard enough, everything gets better. But if you work hard enough at OCD, it means you're doing more compulsions. And I've never yet met anyone who, by doing more compulsions, felt that they got better. So I can't see how beating yourself up, putting yourself down, makes your mood better, makes you less anxious, and causes your OCD to go away. I've just never seen it, right? It just doesn't work that way. What it means for treatment is, of course, we do the opposite of what our OCD wants you to do. And we sit in the discomfort of that, and we learn that we can handle it. That's ultimately what we do. And that's how people get better. Okay? Hope that helps. Cal says, Dr. McGrath, I'm really struggling and could use some encouragement because I feel like giving up and just living with OCD. Well, Cal's, hopefully what I just said there was helpful. You know, there are ways to live with OCD and not have it interfere in your life. Just like there's ways to live with chronic conditions that are physical and still live a good, decent kind of life, right? And Kels, I wonder if in those moments when you're struggling, you're caught in the notion that, man, I haven't figured out a way to make OCD go away. And my hope would be, Kels, my job isn't to make OCD go away. My job working with people is to help people not care about it being there in the first place. But I want the thoughts to stop. And that's why they're there, right? I mean, it goes back to one of our best friends in the world. Don't think of a pink elephant, right? But I don't want to think of a pink elephant. Well, it's pretty hard to not think of a pink elephant when you're hoping to not think of a pink elephant. So, Kels, you got the ability. Now, how willing are you to be okay with the fact that OCD's along for the ride, but it doesn't have to be the driver's seat. It doesn't even have to be the passenger seat. You could put it in the trunk. And you might hear a few muffled, let me out once in a while. And you'll be like, shut up, OCD. Stay in the trunk. Don't make me beat you with a club one more time. Right? Because that's where OCD belongs. Just tied up in the trunk underneath a big old sack of potatoes that you just got at the Costco. You don't need to give it any more time or attention than that. It's going to demand time and attention, right? It wants it. It's definitely a media lover, right? It wants to be out there in lights, but no need to actually put it there whatsoever. Anonymous says, what does it mean when you fear something and have a fear of something and then about 7,000 thoughts about it? How can it happen or come true and then feel guilty about those thoughts? Any tips to be normal? It kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? I'm going to have multiple thoughts today. Some of them are going to come true. Some that I like will come true at some point. Some that I'm indifferent to will come true at some point. Some that I don't like or hope don't happen will probably come true at some point too. Now, OCD doesn't really care about the neutral ones or the ones that I like. OCD is only focused on the ones that I hope don't happen and then say, oh, let me offer you something. Let me offer you the ability to be sure that those will never actually happen. Here is how to do that. You do these compulsions, and I promise you, I guarantee you, those things won't happen. And you, or at least the part of your brain that's all tied up in this, goes, ooh, well, what a bargain. That sounds lovely. Yes, I would like to buy that. Well, great, just sign here on the dotted line. And now I'm going to make sure that bad thing never happens. And you're going to do everything that I tell you to do. And as long as you do everything that I'm going to tell you to do, then I'm going to make sure that that bad thing never happens. Right? It's extortion. Hey, got a really nice house here. Hate to see it catch on fire. You know, I've got a neighborhood protection plan. It's $100 cash a month, and it really assures that there will never be a fire at your house. And then the next month, oh, you know what? It went up to $110 this month. We had, we had a few people move out of the neighborhood, so a few of the profits went down. So it'll be $110 for the month for the neighborhood protection plan. So just remember, keep paying every month, and then every month it's going to go up just a little bit more. This month might be a quarter, next month might be $250, whatever it is. But there will always be more in order to prevent a fire. Now, I have a sneaky suspicion that if you didn't pay that, it would be the neighborhood association folks that would set the fire, and not anything else happening. But your brain would be like, but what if? But what if they're right? What if it's true that they somehow have the ability to make sure that fires don't happen? Right? Maybe it's best just to pay them and not have to worry about anything. And that's what we do when we do a compulsion. We're paying OCD. You're saying, all right, OCD, you've promised me this bad thing won't happen if I do what you tell me to do. So I'm going to do it. And we got a deal here, right? Sure. We got a deal. You do that, everything will be fine. Parentheses for about 45 seconds. Close parentheses. And then you'll have to do it again. That's where we get stuck. Catherine says, how is the emetophobia treated? You can use great ERP for emetophobia. Emetophobia is fear of throwing up. I've simulated throwing up for people. I've even recorded myself with doing a simulated puke. You could do it with a tape recorder or on your phone or something. There's great videos online. Just go to YouTube and type in puke or 21st birthday or milk chugs. And I've had people watch other people throw up and sit with the discomfort of that. I've made fake vomit for people or had them make it and sit with it next to them. And while I make some vomity sounds like, that kind of thing, and get people to just become quote unquote comfortable with the discomfort around vomit. Right. And it works very well. In fact, it's probably the phobia I've treated more than any other phobia. Is as weird as that will sound to people, but it's the number one phobia I've treated is the fear of throwing up. Elizabeth says, how to deal with feelings of a past harm urge, so afraid of the same urges happening again when I'm around my mom. It's holding me back because every time the memory pops up, I get afraid and think about the future when I see her. So, Elizabeth, if your mom knows about OCD, you can explain to her there's harm OCD. I've had people just kind of out and out just say, all right, listen, here's the deal. This is my fear. And so I need to be around you, and I even need to chop some vegetables next to you, right? There's a really good podcast called Invisibilia. If you've never heard of it, check it out. It's the word invisible, but instead of an E at the end, it's an IA. Listen to the first episode. It's about a guy who they interview who's watching a video, a movie, and it's a really violent movie. I think it was Brazil. And halfway through the movie, he leaves the room because he has this intrusive thought he's going to stab his wife. And it kind of gives the journey of him going through treatment and doing all sorts of therapies for it. And at the end of it, he talks about, I still think I can stab my wife. Those thoughts are still there, but she knows about it. And she's like, I'm not afraid of it, whatever. So they interview her, and she's fully aware that he has these intrusive thoughts that he could do this to her. And she has zero fear of it whatsoever. So Elizabeth, you could very well be building this up into your head to be far more bad or awful or horrible than it actually is. And maybe if you're open and honest and true about the OCD and your mom's fully aware of it, it'd be able to even help you with it to get you to recognize, I guess I don't need to spend so much time being so afraid of this whatsoever. Hassan says, when I'm trying to work through the anxiety, what mantras do you recommend? I don't do any mantras. I just want people to feel the feelings and be with it and learn that they can handle it and then live their life and do the things that they need to do. But I don't teach anybody any mantras personally. Joanna, hey, from Sydney, Australia. Woohoo! Well, love me some Oz. Been there 4 times. Good to have you here, Joanna. I have ROCD and the feeling keeps changing. If it's not every week, it's every few days, and I hate it. For the past few weeks, it's been extremely horrible. So, Joanna, find yourself a great therapist, and OCD does work in Australia. So if you need something, let us know. But, yes, it can change, right? I mean, OCD can be a really moving target. That's why we said at the top of the hour, we talked about it as being like OCD whack-a-mole, where it's just kind of jumping around to things because, of course, it wants to be elusive. And, oh, you're going to start to treat that. Okay, oh, boom, how about this now? Oh, you're going to treat that. Boom, back over here, that kind of thing. So I like to just kind of say, all right, this is what we're going to work on, because we know it's going to jump back here at some point anyway. So we're going to do this. We're going to work on this. We're going to focus on this. And you're going to learn that you can handle it. Right? That's our goal. You're going to learn that you can handle this experience. That's what we want for people. And when people start to learn that they can handle things, it becomes much easier for them to deal with once they learn that. Our goal isn't, of course, to make all the relationship doubts or anything go away. And Joanna, I'll tell you, even people who are in great relationships have doubts about their relationships as well at times too. So the goal is not to remove all doubt about relationship and to never have a negative feeling about relationship. I was doing a talk a couple of weeks ago and I was talking about ROCD, and I said, now, do any of you have ROCD? If they were willing to identify, nobody raised their hand and did. But then I said, okay, show of hands. How many of you at some point in time have wanted to punch your spouse in the face? And everybody raised their hand at some point and said, yes, definitely. I have thought about throttling my spouse. So it's not about never having these thoughts or anything like that, right? And you may hate having the thoughts, but the thoughts aren't the problem. The problem is the attention that I think that you give to them, and the desire to make myself, to make yourself try to make those thoughts go away. Right now, my hope will be that you recognize that you can handle that. Right, you can handle any kind of relationship thoughts, whatever they might be, and that they don't have to speak truth about the relationship. They speak what ifs about the relationship, but what ifs aren't truths. Right, there's a what if and there's a truth. And when I say truth, I'm not saying a guarantee, right? I mean, do you love the person? I'm thinking you probably do. Do you have a lot of what ifs, though, about what if it wasn't working out or something? I'm going to bet you probably do, because that's what relationship OCD is. And are you willing to sit with the fact that you can have doubts about the relationship and still be in the relationship? And when you can do those things, then you can hopefully start to feel better. We did that one. Someone said, I punched myself in the face twice. Now I feel grounded. Well, that would be a compulsion, right? That would be an immediate gratifier. And it wouldn't be anything that we would suggest anybody doing as a way to deal with their OCD. But I've seen people do it, unfortunately, because there's almost the idea that I can knock the thought out of my head, or the image, or the urge, or it's a punishment to myself. And if I punish myself hard enough for having whatever the thought or image or urge is, then I'll be okay. That'll be good. But then that comes back again, so then I have to do it again. So that's never anything that we would suggest anybody to do. And I would hope that, you reach out, because we would want you to see a therapist, so that there would be no self-harm that would be done as a way to try to deal with obsessive compulsive disorder. Okay. And finally, when Hassan says, when holding back from a compulsion like hand washing, am I supposed to just sit with the anxiety and distract myself, or sit with the anxiety until it goes away? How about a third option? Live with the anxiety and do what you need to do in your life. You don't have to just sit there and wait for it to go away. I definitely don't want you distracting yourself. I just want you to, do the 30-second hand wash, or 20-second, or whatever is suggested these days, and then move on from there. And that's it, right? That's what you need to do, right? And go live your life. So my hope is that's what you will really work on. Okay. Oh, I still have time for that. We did that one. Let me go down to the end here and just check a couple things real quick. Someone said, yes, it is the doubting disorder. Absolutely. That is the nickname for obsessive compulsive disorder. It is the doubting disorder. And Greer says, do you like the example of compulsion urges being like extortion? Good. Yes, that's exactly what it is, right? Absolutely. Here's the thing, everybody. We'll leave today with this. OCD isn't going to be nice to you because OCD doesn't use nice as a motivator. OCD uses fear and threat and intimidation as a motivator. It's your job to be nice to yourself. And it's your job to not do the things that OCD wants you to do and give in to the extortionist that it is. OCD can threaten and harm, and that it will harm you or do all these other things, or that it will harm other people, or bad things will happen. It just doesn't have anything to back it up. And I want all of you to allow for yourself to understand that just because OCD says something or has an urge to it, or there's an image to it, doesn't make it true, doesn't make it real, and doesn't mean that it is absolutely 100% going to happen. Okay? So, work on being nice to yourself than your OCD is to you, because your OCD is a jerk and it needs to go away. Check us out at NoCD. Download the app at nocd.com or on the Google Play or iOS, and feel free to reach out to us if you're looking for teletherapy anywhere. As always, another great Wednesday with all of you. So happy to be here and to be able to kind of walk some of you through some of your questions and concerns about OCD. We'll see you again next week. Tonight.